Good morning, and I want to welcome you all to my morning podcast. I'm Bob Pace. I'm here to fight CPS and, of course, hang on to your children. Now, it looks like we're having some trouble with the connections to Facebook. YouTube is still connected, but I lost the connections to uh, Facebook. Oh, well. Oh, well. Well, let me see if I can get a hold of my show producer. Let her heads up know. Okay. Um, okay. Well, I've let her know that it's going to be kind of hard to find me today because if you go to Facebook and search Fight CPS Bob Pace, you won't find my links. So I do apologize. Um, yeah, I'm still here. I'm just talking to myself. No, anyway, I wanted to warmly welcome everybody who's listening, who found me, which is great job. We show nobody in the room, but I imagine people will be coming. There's several ways that you can join or interact with this podcast. One of the ways is just by finding my room, which you go to Facebook, fight CPS Bob Pace, and you're supposed to find my link. If you get the link, then you come here to my YouTube channel, and I'm using StreamYard application to broadcast it. Now, my YouTube link is YouTube Fight CPS with Bob Pace. YouTube Fight CPS with Bob Pace, and that's my YouTube link. And hopefully, people will come in. I'm going to let other people know that I'm live, and maybe I could get them to come and join me. Um, Okay. I have Faye on the phone who's joined our show this morning. Faye is a single woman from Richmond, Kentucky, who has a special needs son that she's caring for, and she's trying to get guardianship of him. He's about 23 years old, and then she has about uh, some cats and some dogs. She likes animals, which is really gracious of her. She lost her daughter, about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, and it was sad how she lost her daughter. It's not her fault. Um, she had a CPS experience as a child. 5 times she was in and out of CPS where she was molested and raped and tortured and trafficked. Everything you can think of, she went through it all. So bad that her feet hurt so bad from her being punished to walk on rocks. Anyway, she's a fighter. She has, after 13 years, reopened her case to try to get some communication with her daughter, who taken away at the early age of 4 years. Never got a chance to know her mother. And I know what it's like to lose a daughter. I've lost 2 daughters myself, and I'm estranged from my other daughter and my other son. I'm a family of 6. Been married twice. I was married 10 years, and I've been married 32 years. And I don't know, the first marriage I didn't want to end, and I had one child, and that child I never saw again. That was the sad part. She's in her 30s somewhere teaching, and I think she's gotten married. I don't know if she has any children. So, anyway, I know what it is to lose a child. And then I met my second wife, and we, as I say, have been together for 32 years. We have 3 children that we conceived. She brought with her 2 other children. And ever since we had our case that opened up in 2010 and our children were trafficking in 2015, the rest of the family's been estranged from us. So, um, my 3 children, they were abducted and taken into social service, into foster care. That's their MO. They hear a complaint, you're guilty, and you don't have right to defend yourself. In fact, they don't care about your civil rights or your Fifth Amendment rights or anything. So it's a horrible, horrible experience. But Faye knows it too well. And so she has been on my show for quite some time and has helped me with a lot of things. She created one of my rules, and she also has told me about some other things too. Um, in her life, she's helped other people too. She's helped other people too. And so I really value her input and her company, and we're going to make it through this right now. She's in a terrible hurricane right now. She's in Kentucky, Richmond, Kentucky, and the hurricane has definitely come, and it's really hard because there's a lot of rain and there's lots of wind, 100-mile-an-hour wind in Kentucky. So um, anyway, um, she's here. I'm going to try to get a hold of Nadia from West Hollywood, California. I hope she'll join us. Of course, Facebook is down, so the link there, she's going to have to go to YouTube.
Sorry.
That's okay. Um, I'm telling people to use YouTube, which is Fight CPS with Bob Pace. Also, I try to reach out to my um, co-host. She used to be a co-host, Danielle. We haven't heard from her in a long time, so I still reach out to her, and hopefully that she'll come around. I really don't know what's in her life, what's going on, but it's really, really hard there. Okay. Um, I'm trying to round up some other people to come in my room here.
Hello, my name is Heidi Reyes, and I've been looking at your show on YouTube. And I have a situation where CPS is trying to get my family involved into their program. This afternoon at 1 o'clock, they're kind of forcing me to um, do a meeting with them at 1. Um, so I hope it goes good, I guess. Thank you. Love your show. Bye.
Okay, that was Estrada Arroyo. I have no idea where she's from, but she left a message, and that she has a case today at 1 o'clock. She wants help. I know so many people called the last minute, but I do try to answer all my phone calls. I can't answer before or after my show, but had another person call in too. Okay. Um, Lots of people have called in, but they call in before or after my show hours, which is not a good thing. So anyway, that was yesterday. I think I got pretty much everybody. Yeah, got pretty much everybody. So yeah, so my phone is open, so we can take calls this morning. Now, you're in my room is the first way that you can interact with my podcast. You can use emojis. You can put up thumbs up, hearts, or smiley faces. You also can thank me with stars. I love to see a lot of stars. If you want to follow me, you just click in below and click follow my podcast. If you want notification when I'm on, click notification. I love to have you in my room. Now, you just be in my room. You can be a listener and take notes. Now, let's say that you want to type me a question or make a comment about CPS. That's important that we stick with CPS, and CPS is the Child Protection System. It's what I call the branch of social service that protects our children from neglect and abuse, and also oppose the help a family in need of food, clothing, housing, medical, educational, and work. And that's what the social worker is supposed to do there. And also, if they have to break your family apart, they're supposed to put the family back in reunification and um, make all efforts to have with the mother and father, because the best parents are the biological parents. It's proven studies that the best parents are the biological parents. So all you need to do is show your name. Your first name is fine. The city or the county and the state where you're from. I'm trying to get an idea in their country here of where the hot spots or good spots is CPS or the bad spots. Also, I'm open to all the countries of the world since it's a worldwide podcast. I've had 14 countries that have texted in, such as Bangladesh and New Delhi, India, a country in the Middle East that I can't make out with the Arabic, but the country in the Middle East, the continent of Africa. I've heard from Liberia up in North Africa on the coast, and then I've heard from the Rwanda, who is Central East Africa, near Lake Victoria, and then on the east, I've heard from Mozambique, which is the country on the east side of Africa, opposite Madagascar, and then from South Africa, the Western Province on the west coast of South Africa. And then we move up to Europe, heard from England, Scotland, Wales, part of the United Kingdom, and then, of course, Denmark and Sweden. Across the pond, I've heard from North America, Canada, United States, all the 50 states, including Washington, D.C., Mexico, then further south in South America, I've heard from Guyana on the east coast, above Brazil and east of Venezuela, and then across the Pacific, heard from the land down under Australia, from the Gold Coast, and from the Melbourne area of the state of Victoria, Victoria State. So those are the countries. So you too, if you're going to text, comment, you're welcome more so, or have a question, and you can um, also put your city and your country. That'd be great. Now try to be complete with your CPS case. Try to tell me as much about your case so that we don't have to go back and forth playing ping pong ball, asking questions. And what I mean is the makeup of your family, whether both parents are involved, whether you're married or a husband and wife, or girlfriends, lovers, or your partnership, and whether they're the same parents of the children or either outside parents. If you're a single parent, that'd be good. Then you need to tell me the allegations and the ages and sexes of your children, and then furthermore, um, how the children were taken, and lastly, about where you are in your case. So be complete with your CPS case. So that's the second way. The third way is um, to be a guest on my podcast. I can have up to 9 guests, and my show producer, who's Grace, I want to thank her for her hard work, is the ones that arrange my guests. She, you just email Grace at vincentwdavis.com, and you put down one of my 14 shows. I'm on Monday through Sunday, twice a day at 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific Standard Time for an hour, and at nighttime at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for an hour. And the only exceptions on Sunday, I have church where I'm gone to church. So I do my show 2 hours earlier so I can go to church. And then on Friday, the October 4th, I have a special football game that I'll be going with my son, who played, and I watch him um, and support him. So I come on at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, October 4th. That's 4 o'clock on October 4th. So those are my show hours and so forth. Um, so just email her, pick one of the shows, a Saturday, a Friday, a Wednesday, a morning or afternoon, and she'll give you the link. Now don't lose the link. It can be used. If you happen to come off, use it again. It's still good for the show. She'll also tell you what you can do and not do as a guest. Like you can't eat food or smoke cigarettes during the show. Also, we don't use the children's names or the social workers or the judges' names. And we make sure you have enough lighting and your sound's okay. And I prefer a computer, but if you have only a phone, that's fine. That'll work. And that's the third way. Now, the fourth way is to talk on my phone, and I have an office number. My office number is 626 and you can call me during my showtime hours. Um, but before my showtime or after my showtime, I can't talk to you. And um, um, so you need to call during my showtime hours. So those are the four ways, just by being in the room, uh, texting comments, or being a guest, or calling in. That's the four ways to interact with the podcast. Now, the Child Protection Agency is not your friendly agency, and it's really sad because it's changed. It isn't what it's supposed to do. It's a money making business, it's trillions of dollars being generated, and the money freely comes from the federal government to the state and then passes it down to the county. There's no accountability for the money. There's no watchdogs. There's nobody actually watching CPS. There only is the director, and the directors are just as corrupt as the CPS. If you really want to know what CPS is like, then go look at the story of Alice in Wonderland. You're in your backyard, you fall in the rabbit hole, and you meet the Chester cat that sends you all these crazy rooms that you go nowhere. Child Protection Agency is you go nowhere. Their whole goal is to traffic your children into foster care and to have your child be adopted. They're going to try to see if you're mentally unfit, and they're going to make up stories and lie to you. They will violate your amendments and your Constitution. There is such a bad, blatant thing about that. They are liars. They are also revenge. They're not transparent, and I don't have anything nice to say about them. I only met 3 social workers here on my podcast. They were okay, but of the 500 plus people I've talked to, 90% you say they take your child who are not in immediate danger. They make me do services and make promises, and they don't keep the promises, and my child's gone. And it's so sad because I spoke to a woman from Chicago, Illinois. Rachel was her name, and she was made all these promises to get her children back, and they reneged, and so she's devastated, and she fought for many years, her and her husband. But people can be so mean and cruel, and the sad part, it's not so bad if the child protection system was okay, it wasn't corrupt. But when they're into foster care and they're trying to get rid of the parents, it's sad how they do that, and so forth. So I don't. I had a terrible case. My case was, and it was accumulation of terrible things happening, terrible events happening in my life. And I've worked for over 60 years of my life, but unfortunately, in the year 2010, I lost my job through no fault of my own. And then losing that job was hard for me because it's hard being my age to get a new career job, and so it's been really a hard thing to do. Um, then my kids were taken in 2015 for 5 years, from 2010 to 2015. I had my in-laws. These are lay people that called in and made false accusations, and I had to dispute that for 5 years, which I was successfully doing so until they got a hold of the police and they tricked me into coming to my home, thinking I had to show them my home. Now they've already seen my home in the past. They found nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's a you know couple $1 million home with CCNRs, and it's a controlled neighborhood. It's a private neighborhood, and the things are making things would never happen because someone would have complained. But anyway, um, they inspected my home several times. I met with them outside, but they were determined to get me for something because they really believed that my wife's parents and sisters and brothers were saying the stuff that was the truth, which was not the truth. So I am. really want to say that uh, it's very uncomfortable knowing how corrupt they are and how they want their money. They're a bad entity. Now, I have lots of ways I can go with my podcast. Apparently, if we don't have links that are working, people are not going to find my room, and that is sad. But it is these shows you can watch, and so maybe people can watch them later and get some benefits. Now, I can talk more about my case, or I can talk about the more about the child protection system, or I can talk about what kind of social workers they are, or I can talk about the topics. I have lots of topics loaded about all kinds of things. Or I could also uh, talk about Courage Digest. And I think I'll go to Courage Digest. Faye this morning doesn't really have much to say, so I'm going to go to Courage Digest and see what's new there for me. Um, Let me see. One question came up here. What Core Digest is that people write in questions and then other people answer the questions. It's kind of an open forum, and the questions can be by anything, but mine are geared to the child protection system. So this one here is made by a special, um, is answered. The question is, let me go and blow up a little bit better here. You have to almost do it twice to get to the meat of the problem there. The question came up, as a teacher, did you ever have to report a child to CPS and why? Now, teachers are professionals. They are gone through training to recognize what neglect or abuse is, and they're required by law to report suspected neglect or abuse of children. So those are the other part of the equation. You got lay people and you got professionals. Besides teachers, there's your principals and counselors. There's the caregivers, the policemen, the doctors, the nurses. Anybody that works with children has to report it by law. So this person named Cat Mama, who was a special education teacher, answered it. Sadly, several times that she had to report as a teacher. The saddest case I had to call in was for an autistic 14-year-old with the middle age of a 4-year-old whose mother was leaving him home alone so she could get her chemotherapy. She was a wonderful, caring mother who simply couldn't do everything and didn't have support. I begged her to find a neighbor or someone from her church to babysit. As a last ditch effort, even offered to help her drop him off at my house when she went to her appointments. But she wouldn't do it, and I had to call. She had him taken off my caseload, so I never got to find out what happened. I hope CPS made her lean on people so she can keep him. Well, that's kind of a simple ending. I was hoping something more, but that was from that person there that tried to help. That Yep, here's another one here. Okay, this one here is the question came up is that my 16-year-old son beats his 7-year-old little sister every day. We had to hide the bruises when she goes to school to prevent CPS from being called. We can't get them to stop. What should I do? Well, that is a hard one. I mean, I don't know why the parents can't control their 16-year-old son. Um, Sort of like how you have Faye with your older son. Um, but this was answered by Elizabeth Beck, and who studied geography in college. And what Elizabeth said is that you're abetting your son in the abuse of your daughter. And as a former cop, well, I guess Elizabeth Beck was a former cop, I'd be getting warrants for both of you. Your your daughter needs protection, and you are responsible for that. I would say to the son, that is the last time you touch her without me calling the police. and filing battery charges against you. Once you're out of jail, you'll be in charge of the county. You'll be in charge of the county. Your choice, a place to live until you're 18 or jail. Then if he touches her again, I'd follow through. And when he realizes your intent, he'll go after you, so be ready. You're allowing a criminal activity by your son and starting him off on a path of mighty makes right. Personally, I think you also need time in jail, and your daughter deserves someone much better than you as a parent. Weak and pathetic excuse for a parent. Wow, this cop came down hard on her. Disabled comments since I am being told I'm a terrible person when I just answer the question myself. But BTW, you call me bad, I block you from my comments. Anyway, it's really hostile, you know. Anyway, that's the story of a 16-year-old beating his sister, and the police said he should have been arrested, and there's no wrong to be there. So now here's another question on Coors Digest. Um, okay, here it comes up again. I want to argue if someone reports you to CPS, your children should be removed until the investigation is complete. But why does CPS leave them in potentially unsafe homes where a possible child will be strangled? Now, I don't know if CPS leaving people. In fact, they sometimes overzealously take kids out of the home and into foster care. So I never heard about this one. Um, now, Joanna answered the question. You don't want to argue. This question isn't framed or debate. What you want is the second half of the question. My ex wife tried to call CPS on me for abuse. They asked me why I would smack my toddler's hands. I straightly told them that was more preference to smack her hands um, than to let her strangle my puppies. My ex wife's dog gave birth, and my opportunity that rose, my daughter would go to them, grab them by the neck, and squeeze. She was 2.5. You explain to a 2-year old that they'll kill a puppy by holding it by the throat. Chances are they don't understand. If you remove a child from home for mere allegations, you disrupt their lives totally and probably cause undue amounts of emotional distress. Do you really think all these accusations are true? My ex wife showed they aren't, and you have ever had neighbors that just don't like you. My ex hates me, hence the call for something stupid. People are vindictive. A neighbor who doesn't like you can very well lodge a dozen complaints in a short span of time. Maybe you should have a kid and then have a neighbor who hates you so much that she makes your life hell for a time. Imagine how much time you'd lose in the formative years to baseless accusation. A CPS investigation can take a long time. Every home is a potential unsafe home. It's the degree of unsafe that matters. A homeowner with a pool has a potential unsafe home, but we don't go around calling CPS because someone has a pool. A homeowner has potentially unsafe home if they live on a busy street. We don't call CPS because their parent lives on Main Street. If you feel that every single report that comes through CPS is worthy of state intervention, well, then I would advise you to get the stick. And that's the only reason I can see to remove kids from her family for no reason, is you want to do it every single time. That's your view. I take back. Never have kids. I won't, and well for you. Um, that was a kind of a weird one for CPS. Um, um, anyway, We got our Facebook connections back and running. Hopefully, we'll get some people that'll come in now. Thank you, our show producer, Grace, for fixing that. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Let me see if I can find another CPS case here. Um, okay, here's one here. Um, Let me see if I expand it and open it up. Okay, if a child's mother is incarcerated and the father files for custody, but the mother signed a power of attorney over to the child's great grandfather, will the father be granted custody? So let me read the question again here. If a child's mother is incarcerated and the father files for custody, but the mother signed over a power of attorney over to the child's great grandfather, will the father be granted custody? Oh boy, that's a hard one. Now, Ellen answered the question, who worked for a roofing contractor. If a child's mother is incarcerated and the father files for custody, but the mother signed a power of attorney over the child's great grandfather, will the father be granted custody? This power of attorney has nothing at all to do with custody. Oh, that's good to know. A power of attorney has nothing to do with custody. So remember that. All that does is allow the holder, the grandfather in this case, to sign his daughter's name and engage in specific transactions on her behalf, which she is unable to do so herself. Yes, the father most certainly can file for custody since great granddad doesn't have legal custody of the child. Mom would have had to set that up before she went to jail, and dad will likely win unless granddad can prove that removing the child from his care would cause the child great emotional distress and therefore endangering the well being. Another consideration that the judge is going to look at very closely is the great granddad age. How flippin' old is he? I mean, great grandfather, that's he's got to be over 100. This is the mother's grandfather, for Pete's sake. He ain't no spring chicken. He's not even capable of caring for a child. The judge will need to see proof of that before um, before denying the father his legal rights to his child. Wow, that was an interesting one there. So, okay, I have about 20 minutes left of the podcast. Hopefully, someone will call in. My number's up 626 880 990. That's 626 698 0990. And I'm open for phone calls if any out there want to call. We have someone finally come in the room, so the link did work. So we got people coming back in. Good to hear that. Good to hear that. Now, here's a CPS question. Um, what should you not say to a judge in family court? You know, juvenile court, family court, dependency court is all dealing there. First of all, never denotarize the other person, usually your ex spouse. Um, your belief that your ex is a narcissist or a psychopath is going to be useless, even if you're a qualified psychiatrist or psychologist. Even general terms, unfit or terrible parent, are going to poison your argument. The best comeback I ever heard from a judge is when both parties were bad mouthing each other and was getting nothing that was getting into a relationship with them, showed how bad their own judgment was. Calling your spouse's names is merely going to demonstrate to the judge that you're the problem. You'll make the other person look better. Secondly, the two words you don't want to use to describe events always and never. Well, that's not quite true. A judge will impress if you admit that he always remembers the kid's birthday, but he'll not believe he never remembers the kid's birthday. Words like frequently, mostly, almost never are fine, but never speak in absolutes about negative quality. Third, remember the legal maximum um, of the law does not give to govern trifles. This is not the same to bring up minor slights or deficiencies, like it kept me waiting half an hour to exchange the kids. Um, uh, I lost my spot here. Okay, not make other persons. Words like frequently, mostly, almost never are fine, but never speak in absolutes. Um, the third is the law that does not govern trifles. It's not the time to bring up minor slights or deficiencies. Keep waiting a half an hour to exchange the kid or forgot my birthday. The fact your spouse got drunk at a party is not a relative fact. If your spouse has a problem with alcohol, bring up examples, but don't use the word alcoholic. Um, anyway, that was interesting there too. Let me see if I get me another one here. Okay. Now this one here is another question by Cora. How do you deal with a neighbor's child who's constantly coming over to your house and bothering your kids? So you have a neighbor's child who's coming over and bothering your kids. I don't know what they're doing, but a person named Andrea, who's retired from University of Wisconsin, answered this question. Um, my son was around 5 when we got new neighbors. The new kids were at least 10 or up. They wanted to play with my son in the sandbox. Really? I made sure the windows of the porch were open. The sandbox was right at the window. If I stood in a corner, I could see and hear, but they couldn't see me. The new kids started telling my son he should call me a whore. Oh my goodness gracious. And that, so instead of a mom, these new kids are awful, boy. So I came out of the house, took the kids home, talking to the parents. I told the kids to tell them what they're teaching my son. Of course, the kids lie. I told the parents what they said. Oh no, we're not good Christians. We teach your children, but you and them are not welcome. Another neighbor at another time heard the kids and stopped their gossip. It all boils down to protect your kids. Boy, that was a hard one there. That was definitely a hard one. Oh. Now here's a question: has anybody lost their kids due to termination from CPS? Has anybody lost their kids due to termination from CPS? Um, Let's see what the answer is. The family courts are allowed to operate outside the law of all other courts. CPS is both protected in the same way as police officers have immunity, and because CPS answers to the family court system. There is far too much room for corruption and unchecked power in the current Child Protection Services operation model. Frankly, it's shocking that they have the power they do under the guise of protecting their children, but without qualified and proper oversight, they have to prove to destroy their families without just cause. CPS is supposed to exist as an agency with only a child's best interest as their guide. They're not, however, operating on the assumption that what is best for children is overwhelming, that they remain with their intact families. Instead, they seem fixation on the idea that all these children need to be safe from their parents and then placed in a safe home environment with people that are strangers to them. It's really harmful because biological bonds are very real and exist from conception. You can substitute a non biological parent, but there's also irreversible damage done to the child and serving those biological bonds. Not to mention the damage done to the biological parents. Added to that, very commonly and very real abuse faced by the children when they are in foster care and even when they are placed and then adopted. You don't need to look very hard for thousands of stories and personal testimonies about what children faced after removed from their biological parents by CPS. It's currently a broken system that can do more harm than good to children. Yeah, CPS is a broken system. I agree. It is our broken system. It's not um, sad to say when they terminate a parent. And a lot of times, parents have disability. They're taking advantage of that because they have disabilities. Also, they may be going through a divorce, and when they go through a divorce, they lose, the custody of the children and so forth. So it's kind of bad. So what they do, um, they 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 have to regroup. It's so hard. It really is. That is a tough question, and it's really sad what they do. Now here's one here that I've talked about warrants in here. The question is it true that Child Protection Services requires a warranty in your house? What happens if you do not answer the door when they come to your house? Well, I tell people not answering the door. I also say they cannot enter your home without a warrant. Let's see what the answer these people come up with. Emma B., who's been studying CPS after they took her kids for 10 years, she's been studying CPS. Yes, it's true that cops must have a warrant to come into your home. They'll tell you they have a warrant in their hands, but they're lying. They'll come with a police escort sometimes, but he cannot do anything. If you don't answer your door, you're very smart. They cannot come in. They can just stand there all day telling you they can, but the truth of the matter, they can't. And they wouldn't come in because they can't be trusted. If you let them in your home, they'll find a way to make you think that you should be fit to have your child. They'll make up lies about everything because that is what they do. I don't know why they call themselves Child Protection Services. They don't protect any children. They're evil. They should never be allowed near anyone's home or anyone's child. That's a good answer. I agree with that answer. Um, you know that is a good answer. That is a good answer. Now here's the one that has come up a lot um, in my podcast. I'm 17 years old. I got a 19-year-old pregnant, and she wants to charge me for child support. Is that ever legal? So the guy is still a minor. The girl is 19, and so child support. Let's see what they say. I guess you'd be around 35 or 36 for finally meet your final legal obligation for screwing around and not taking precautions. If you don't get a good paying job immediately or immediately after high school graduations, you'll always be behind the eight ball on your payments. If you got enough brain power and you're in the U.S., you might be able to join the U.S. military. They'll take your child support and straighten out your check, and you not to worry about being late or on time to meet your financial obligations. The child will also get insurance coverage. You did this to yourself. You have no excuses. Since people don't know how to answer, oh, so so you are obligated for child support. You create a child, and that's your financial obligation for creating that child. You got to think twice. Even if you're 17, you got to think about how to be careful about making that happen. So that was an interesting case there. Now here's another one here. Is there a time limit for relative to get you if you're in foster home for CPS? What if it's been 7 months? My brother was in foster care for 3 years before he was adopted out. As long as your parents are still fighting in court, they can't terminate your rights. Do you hear about that, you people out there? You have to keep fighting. Don't give up. Court can drag on and on and on. CPS will have many hoops for the parents to jump through before they hand the child back. My mother's court case with my brother was dragged on for 3 years. Until the end, she lost my brother for good. I would have had to say my mom was half to blame for that. CPS didn't make it easy for her. If they had it in their head that they don't want the parents to have their children back, they'll make it extremely hard for them. My mom wasn't strong enough to fight them. They had her head messed up and she couldn't keep it together. 7 months is not close to long enough to be able to terminate a parent's right, unless the parents give up voluntarily and Willie signs over his or her rights to the child. They have to give enough time for the parents to fix their mistakes and have a safe environment for the child. That can take a long time depending on the circumstances. So if it's just been 7 months, don't worry about it. There's still lots of time. Well, that's an answer. That's another answer there with Cora there. Um, um, so I've talked a little bit about Cora's Digest and some questions and so forth. Unfortunately, I haven't had too much activity in the way of questions from any of you or phone calls. My number's been up, for 50 minutes, and so um, I guess no one's really interested in talking this morning. But I really appreciate if you come back again tonight at 7 p.m. and talk about your questions or your concerns about CPS. I do want to end up with my rule number one of that you must have an attorney to fight CPS. And what I mean by that is that you got to have a dependency family uh, juvenile lawyer. And I have one that provides his podcast. His name is Vincent Davis. His law firm, Vincent Davis and Associates, produces this podcast. He also have made arrangements with him to have a consultation, a Zoom consultation with you for 30 minutes for only $60. That's 30 minutes for only $60. And you're probably saying, well, why should I get an attorney? I have a court appointed attorney. Well, let me tell you about court appointed attorneys. They are legal attorneys, I mean, but they only know criminal. They don't know dependency court. Dependency court is totally different. That's where families and juvenile issues about child protection are discussed. And you need someone that has that background and training there. Also, the court appointed attorneys will have a caseload of 30 or more clients. They won't have time for your case. They don't have time to talk to you out of court. And they're not going to fight for your case because there's no incentive. They're going to look for the easy way out. They're friends of the judge, friends of the social worker's attorney, and CPS is hoping that you use a court appointed attorney and your children will use a court appointed attorney because that way they have control of the situation. So I don't know how important it is for you to think about a real attorney because a real attorney will get your kids back. I hired Vincent Davis. I waited too late. I waited almost a year. But I got back my two sons. I did lose my daughter. And she did something that wasn't her fault, but she was talked into it by a corrupt social worker. And it was where the social worker was on the stand and commenting about my wife's sister and her husband were trying to adopt her daughter, which we didn't want to happen. And he asked a question to her: has there been any domestic violence at the home? And the social worker said, "Oh, they've been really great parents. There's no domestic violence, and they're perfect for the child." Well, he opened his briefcase, pulled out a folder, it's half-inch thick, with about 30 or more reports of physical domestic violence at the home, my wife's sister and husband. So bad that he used physical domestic violence. And so when he started reading reports to her, she just dropped her head in shame and wanted to slither out of there. And she left court very upset, very mad because she had lied. She had committed perjury, and she's now open for a lawsuit. And I would sue her, but it takes money to sue her, and I don't have the money to sue her. And so I'm telling you, you need to get a attorney. And this attorney, Vincent Davis, is a real deal. He practices law locally in Arcadia, south of LA. He has cases in San Bernardino, Riverside County, also in Northern California. He also has cases out there in Oklahoma. So he would go out of the state. You just got to worry about the per diem when he goes from outside of his area. Per diem, like for him, for his ground transportation, his air transportation, and his hotel accommodations and food, because he needs that when he travels. But that's the only added expense there. So I really challenge you to get this attorney. Fighting CPS is like open heart surgery. You need a professional, and he is a professional. He has 35 years of fighting social service, returning kids. He's also a trial attorney, and he's also filed lawsuits, civil lawsuits, in both federal and in state court, and won millions of dollars. So he's a real deal. So what you do is you go to the website. I have it at the bottom of my screen, and it's the book, A Discounted Zoom Consultation with Attorney Vincent Davis for up to 30 minutes. You go to https :// CALENDLY.com /apps APPTS and then VWD /Bob Pace BOBPACE. And you go there and you get that consultation. It'll be well worth your time with them. You can also talk to them about hiring them and retaining them if you like. Well, that being said, I need to end my podcast. My time is up. And I want to thank all of you that listened. God bless you all. I want you to keep trying and fighting hard for your case. And I will see you tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is Bob Pace